I forgot to add this very important article to this video, so I'm going to just put it straight up to the front in the beginning of the video. Largest air exercise in NATO history to include hundreds of guardsmen, by Rachel Cohen. Joint Base Andrews, Maryland. NATO countries this summer will launch the largest military exercise in the Transatlantic Alliance's 74-year history, spanning more than 220 aircraft and 10,000 participants from 24 nations. Exercise Air Defender, slated for June 12th, that's in 3 days, through the 23rd, aims to project a united front in Europe as Russia's year-long war in Ukraine slides towards a stalemate. So, the things that I'm going to tell you in the next several articles, that's the reason why this one should be up front, up in the beginning of the video. So, and you will understand why it was necessary for me to insert this article, okay? Well, this morning I got a lot of information to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and get started right now. You're going to need to know what your governments are doing, what they're up to, and what they are willing to do to forward their agenda. And we're going to go ahead and get started with this article on the independent.org. This is an interview by Robert B. Stinnett and Douglas Sirignano. And it was on March the 11th, 2002. Do Freedom of Information Act files prove FDR had foreknowledge of Pearl Harbor? I'm not going to go through this whole thing. It's quite long, okay? But I would urge each and every one of you to read this carefully. I will put a link of all the articles that I'm reading today. But you get the gist of it, that the Freedom of Information Act actually proves, according to these people, that FDR knew. Again, according to the Freedom of Information Act, FDR apparently knew that Japan was going to attack Pearl Harbor, and he did nothing to warn them. And what I'm telling you, and you should already know this, that these people in power, they will sacrifice thousands of lives, millions of lives. I'm now going to stand up and accuse them of being willing to sacrifice millions of lives in order to forward their own agendas. Okay? They're saying he didn't even reveal it to his cabinet, and maybe only Harry Hopkins. So I scroll down here, way down. I'm just saying, read this article, okay? Now, so yesterday, the NATO chief chairs an emergency meeting over the dam that collapsed in Ukraine. Notice I did not say exploded, because I don't know if it did or not. Ukraine is accusing Russia of blowing it up. Russia is accusing Ukraine of blowing it up. But there's one thing that they have not considered. A good while ago, they allowed this dam to be filled all the way, nearly all the way full. Any dam can collapse by an earthquake, by faulty design. It's happened many times by faulty design. But no, it's got to be the reason that furthers one's own agenda. That has got to be the reason. Now, NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg said he will chair a meeting Thursday in an emergency coordination panel with Ukraine on the outrageous destruction of a frontline dam. How does he know that it was destroyed by men? How does he know? He doesn't. But they're going with that narrative. The wrecking of the Kakhovka Dam in the southern Kherson region unleashes waters displacing thousands of people, causing ecological catastrophe in Ukraine, he said in a tweet on Wednesday. He added that Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba would participate by video link in Thursday's meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Commission. Kuleba, sorry about mispronunciation of names, tweeted that his meeting was called at his request and that Stoltenberg had promised NATO mechanisms would be used to provide humanitarian assistance. What mechanisms are we talking about? A NATO spokesman said no more details on the meeting, including the time it will be held, were available to share with the media. They're not telling. When we get a little bit further into this article, you will start questioning whether they will use this as an excuse to put boots on the ground, NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine. Kuleba reiterated Kiev's accusation that the crisis was caused by Russia's destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. Russia has blamed the demolition of the dam on Ukraine. NATO member Britain said it would wait for more facts before appropriating blame for the dam's destruction. And interestingly enough, Great Britain has been going whole hog, full speed ahead toward World War III up until now. Why are we stopping now? Great Britain? France, another key Ukraine ally in NATO, said it would send aid to Ukraine. President Emmanuel Macron, writing on the Twitter after speaking by telephone with Ukrainian counterpart Vladimir Zelensky, condemned this atrocious act. Okay? So you can see the way this article was worded is they're going to bring NATO aid. What do they mean by that? I mean, how are you going to aid with the destruction of the dam? Now, let's move this over here. So The Guardian has an article. I don't have a date on this article, but it was posted also on Zero Hedge this morning, so it is indeed. Wait a minute, we got Wednesday, 7th June 2023. Okay, 2 days ago. NATO members may send troops to Ukraine, warns former alliance chief. And then you will, after reading this article, you will see who is pushing the hardest for this. And why? A group of NATO countries may be willing to put troops on the ground in Ukraine if member states, including the U.S., do not provide tangible security guarantees to Kiev At the Alliance's summit in Vilnius, the former NATO Secretary General Anders Rasmussen has said. Rasmussen, who has been acting as official advisor to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Ukraine's place in a future European security architecture, has been touring Europe and Washington to gauge a shifting mood before the critical summit, which starts on July the 11th. He also warned that even if a group of states did provide Ukraine with security guarantees, others would not allow the issue of Ukraine's future in NATO membership be kept off the agenda at Vilnius. He made his remarks as the current NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said that the issue of security guarantees would be on the agenda at Vilnius, but added that NATO, under Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, only provided full-fledged security guarantees to full members. The U.S. ambassador to NATO, Julianne Smith, let me insert this here. Poland is a full-fledged member. I'll continue. Julianne Smith said, "We are looking at an array of options to signal that Ukraine is advancing in its relationship with NATO." Rasmussen said, "If NATO cannot agree on a clear path forward for Ukraine, there is a clear possibility that some countries individually might take action. We know that Poland is very engaged in providing concrete assistance to Ukraine, and I wouldn't exclude the possibility that Poland would engage even stronger in this context on a national basis, to be followed by the Baltic states, maybe including the possibility of troops on the ground." So you see what these people are telegraphing here. If we don't do something, then they're going to do something, is what this article is saying. If we, NATO, don't put troops on the ground in Ukraine, then Poland and the Baltic states will. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But it's an excuse for NATO to put troops on the ground. I think the Poles would seriously consider going in and assembling a coalition of the willing. Where have we heard that before? If Ukraine doesn't get in anything in Vilnius, we shouldn't underestimate the Polish feelings. The Poles feel that for too long Western Europe did not listen to their warnings against a true Russian mentality. He said it would be entirely legal for Ukraine to seek such military assistance. You see what they're telegraphing here, folks? His striking suggestion that some states may regard the stakes as momentous enough to use their own troops could be seen as a warning to countries that the risks, including the threat to NATO unity, do not only come if Ukraine is providing a quick path to NATO membership or powerful security guarantees. Germany remains wary of going too far, fearing it would provoke Russia. Rasmussen said it was imperative that Ukrainians should receive written security guarantees, preferable before the summit. The summit's on the 11th of July, coming up next month. But outside the NATO framework. These, in other words, they want to get around NATO rules. And they want to have that inked and dry by July the 11th. When I say they want to get by NATO rules, they want to get by NATO rules to provide Ukraine security guarantees. That's just another way of saying that NATO will jump in and put troops on the ground in Ukraine. These need to cover intelligence sharing, joint Ukraine training, enhanced ammunition production, NATO interoperability, and a supply of arms sufficient to deter Russia from a further attack. He said that after a slow start, momentum was now building behind these ideas, including in France, but he warned that security guarantees would not be enough. He said some NATO allies might be in favor of the security guarantees to actually avoid the real discussion on Ukraine's Ukraine's membership aspirations. They hope that providing security guarantees, they can avoid this question. I don't think that is possible. I think that NATO issue will be raised in the summit in Vilnius. I've spoken with several Eastern European leaders, and there's a group of hardcore Eastern Central European allies that want at least a clear path for NATO, Ukraine towards NATO membership. And he said, history has showed it is dangerous to leave NATO in the... I'm sorry. Let's try again. He said, history has shown it was dangerous to leave Ukraine in the NATO waiting room indefinitely. Even if an invitation to Ukraine to join NATO could not be provided at the Vilnius summit, the possibility of extending an invitation in Washington next year could be referenced. That path to membership, he said, should exclude setting preconditions such as NATO membership action plan, something neither Sweden nor Finland have been required to adopt as part of their action plan or their membership plan. Anything less than that would be a disappointment to Ukraine. He rejected the argument that Ukraine could not be offered a path to NATO membership until the war was over, saying that this would provide Putin with a veto. Now, Poland. Are they telling the truth when they say that Poland might make themselves a coalition of the willing of the Baltic states to help defeat Russia in Ukraine? This article, Meet Europe's Coming Military Superpower, was written in November 21st, 2022 by Matthew Karniczig. And I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce Polish. So we'll just start reading the article. When a stray missile landed in a Polish town last week, killing 2 people, some European leaders worried as much about how Poland's right-wing government would react if they did that about the possibility that Russia ordered the strike. Poland's long-standing distrust of all things Russia and the current government's deep antipathy toward Moscow triggered concern from Brussels to Berlin that Warsaw might do something rash. Instead of losing its nerve, however, Warsaw was stoical, placing its armed forces on alert while also keeping its powder dry until there was clarity about what happened. The conclusion is that it was an air defense missile fired by Ukraine to protect itself from Russia attacked it when astray. That calm was born of a simple reality that has for years passed most of Europe by. Poland has what is arguably Europe's best army, and it's only going to get stronger. Remember what we just read in that last article? Poland might go on their own with a coalition of the willing in the Baltic states. Poland's paranoia about Russia prompted it to eschew the prevailing zeitgeist across much of Europe that conventional warfare was a thing of the past. Instead, it is building what are now on track to become the EU's heftiest land forces. The Polish army must be so powerful that it does not have to fight due to its strength alone, the Prime Minister of Poland said on the eve of Poland's Independence Day. It is a shift that has resonated with Poland's indispensable ally. Poland has become our most important partner in the continental Europe, a senior U.S. Army official in Europe said, citing the crucial role Poland has played in supporting Ukraine and in shoring up NATO defenses in the Baltics. While Germany, traditionally America's key ally in the region, remains a linchpin as a logistical hub, Berlin's endless debates over how to resurrect its military and a lack of strategic culture have hampered its effectiveness as a partner, the official said. As Germany continues to debate the details of what it calls the Zeitenwende, or strategic turning point triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Poland is already making substantial investments. Warsaw said it would raise its target defense spending from 2.4% of gross domestic product to 5%. That's more than doubling. Meanwhile, Germany, which spent about 1.5% of GDP on defense last year, is debating whether it can maintain NATO's 2% goal after it exhausted a $100 billion defense, £100 billion or euro defense investment fund it approved earlier this year. Polish defense minister pledged in July that his country would have the most powerful land forces in Europe. It's well on its way. So, the people on the front lines, the nations on the front lines of this war, may go it alone, sure enough, if the rest of NATO doesn't toe their line. What am I getting at? Oh, they're going. Listen, these world leaders are going to drag this world into a nuclear war. Let's just be honest. And look, I showed you in Scripture, in Zechariah 14, verses 12 and 13, I believe, that Jehovah himself is going to make sure they do it. You can read it. It's there. I have shown you many, many times in my videos. Now let's go to what just happened today. This is very serious, and after reading this article, you may want to take some action, because there most certainly will be a counter-attack. Hackers claim to have crippled Russia's banking system by Vilnius Petkauskas. Pro-Iranian hacktivists allegedly took down Infotel. Might want to find out what Infotel is. A Russian internet service provider crucial for operating a platform that Russian banks use to facilitate the financial system. I would say it is much like SWIFT. I'm not saying it's exactly like it, but it's comparable to it. Cyber Anarchy Squad, a pro-Kiev hacker collective, took credit for taking down Infotel, a Moscow-based ISP. The service provider has been down since June 8th, and its site is still inaccessible at the time of writing this article. In other words, there's no way to distribute money in Russia today. That's a big deal. That is a big attack. You think that Russian hacktivists won't respond in kind? Their entire infrastructure is destroyed. There is nothing left alive there. Well, that's a poor use of words, but I think you get the gist. They let them try to rebuild let them try to rebuild everything. They have as much chance as Russia is to have an easy life. Apparently this is translated, so it's kind of weird reading. Attackers said on their Telegram channel, while taking down a single ISP is not a tectonic event, the attack's side effects have a potential to have severe ramifications for Russia's banking system. Infotel runs the automated system of electronic interaction for the Central Bank of Russia. Commercial banks, credit unions, and other businesses use ASEI for secure communications between different organizations. The system enables secure document exchange, data transfer, digital signature, and other crucial activities to facilitate the banking system. In theory, without ASEI, the ability for institutions to exchange financial information on loans transactions is severely limited. While backup systems could assist during downtime, delays would be unavoidable since banks rely on AESI to process transactions. A sudden shutdown would halt interbank communications, preventing some of the transactions from taking place. All right, so now a different subject, but the same pattern. Move over American flag. Now U.S. troops salute the rainbow flag. The U.S. Air Force is celebrating LGBT Pride Month. And all of you know, including those who are participating in it, that Pride comes before the fall. With a serviceman saluting the activist, homosexual, bisexual, transgender, queer rainbow flag. The Air Force published a tweet Wednesday reading, "June is Pride Month. The Department of Air Force proudly recognizes and celebrates generations of LGBTQI plus P." I'm going to add P. They put plus on there. P, that's for pedophiles. Might as well add another G for groomers. Service members and their contributions to our Air Force and airspace. All right? Now, I want to show you something else. You have the so-called pride flag. And I'm going to get to that rainbow thing in just a minute. Rockefeller Center celebrates Pride. They replaced all the national flags with the so-called Pride flag. Now what I want to do, I want to explain to you who the Rockefeller Center, or what the Rockefeller Center is really all about. Okay? And I hope I do not forget to point out, well, I'm going to go ahead and point it out right now, so I don't forget, that the rainbow was a sign from Jehovah the Creator to all mankind. It was a sign of a promise that he would never cause the entire earth to be swallowed up by a great flood. So he would never destroy, wipe men off the earth by a flood. And so what these people are, by taking that sign and wiping it with their perversion, they are blaspheming. They are blaspheming the promise of no more flood to destroy men off the face of the earth. And that is why, folks, he is going to destroy men by fire. You see, when the flood came, Yes, it was very distressful, but it was more humane, as they say, as what's going to happen in the Great Tribulation upon the Gentiles. If you read the plagues that are going to be sent by the two witnesses, or from Jehovah by the two witnesses, and the 7 last plagues, it's going to be torturous. Yes, many people will die. A third of the population will die in one fell swoop on the nuclear attacks. But the rest, it's going to be a gruesome, torturous process, this tribulation. It will not be short and simple like the flood. Now to the Rockefeller Foundation. This is concerning Foundation of the Holocaust, American Eugenics and the Nazi Connection, by David Turner, published December 30th, 2012. And many times I posted and read the article by Edwin Black about America authored the eugenics plan that led to the Holocaust. All right, and let's scroll down here again. So, in this article, he points out the United States authored this eugenics agenda. Beginning in 1940, thousands of Germans taken from old age homes, mental institutions, and other custodial facilities were systematically gassed. Between 50,000 and 100,000 were eventually killed. Leon Whitney, executive secretary of the American Eugenics Society, declared of Nazism, while we, the Americans, were pussyfooting around, the Germans were calling a spade a spade. Eugenics provided the scientific veneer justifying future atrocities, which following Israel's capture and trial of Adolf Eichmann would come to be termed the Holocaust. America funds ration hygiene. We already have seen that the Carnegie Institute was supporting German eugenics as early as the 1920s, but Carnegie was not alone. The Rockefeller Foundation also supported eugenics, even funded the program that Joseph Mengele worked in before he went to Auschwitz. The foundation funded both eugenics research and building the laboratories to house the researchers. First among these was Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin. So we have a former Nazi organization, top dead center. Yes, I'm using a mechanical term there, with their pride flags. I guess they just cannot get enough of the wrath that's coming upon them in the not too distant future. And as I pointed out, a abomination, a blasphemy that was committed by Donald J. Trump when he retweeted this blasphemous abomination by one of his favorite preachers about how the Jews in Israel consider Donald Trump the second coming of the Messiah, or Jesus, or whatever it was that he said. And Donald Trump went and retweeted that. And I told you when it happened, but I pointed it out, that I'm not going to judge this man because somebody else is going to judge him. And I said that I do not see him being president of the United States ever again. And I wouldn't be surprised if something worse happened to him, because Herod did something less offensive than that, and worms ate him as soon as he did. So today it has been reported that there are at least 7 indictments against Donald Trump. What I'm saying is, this is not about Donald Trump. What I'm saying is, when the government institutions of this United States raises a blasphemy, multiple birds in the air against Jehovah the Creator, and mocking his promise not to send another flood to punish mankind. If that does not scare you into getting ready for what is about to happen, then I honestly think that you are one of them, that you are the enemy. I've shown you many of my videos, proven over and over and over and over again that nuclear war is going to take place. I guess it's time to get started and repeat some of these things I have pointed out to you. Bring this a little closer somehow, or just maybe I'm getting old. I can't see anymore. All right, so we'll go to Zechariah 14. Now this right here, the day of Jehovah's wrath came upon Jerusalem. That was on the Roman calendar 70 AD. All right? Then, this right here was, I'm going to have to read this because King James Version was deceitful here. The day of Jehovah comes, and the spoil will be divided in the midst of you, for I will gather the Goi against Jerusalem to battle. And he did. The city will be taken, the houses were plundered, and the women were caused to lie down. They say that means ravished. No, they were, yes, they were, but they were cut open, they were killed. And half the city goes into captivity, goes into exile. And the rest of the people, it does not say shall not be cut off. It says the rest of the people shall be cut off. So half of the people of the city were taken into exile, while the other half was cut down from the city. And for that reason, that's the reason that Jehovah will go and fight against those nations when he fights on the day of battle. Now, how shall he fight these nations? It's very interesting how King James Version has deceived you into thinking a certain way. And this shall be the plague wherewith Jehovah, not the Lord. Does not say the Lord. It never did say the Lord, and it never shall be the Lord. His name is Jehovah. A plague, a blow, a slaughter that Jehovah will smite the people who fought against Jerusalem. This is going to be what happens to the people who ever fought against Jerusalem in the past. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet. Is that a supernatural thing? Let's find out. And their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. We know that nuclear weapons do that. We know that for a fact. Hiroshima and Nagasaki proved it. Not and it shall come to pass, but on that day, a great tumult, confusion, disquiet, a disturbance. Turmoil as opposed to peace. What is the opposition of peace? War. Therefore, a great war. And that is backed up by what it says next. A great war from Jehovah shall be grow strong. That's what it says. Grow very, very strong. So it starts small and it grows very strong. And everyone shall lay hold on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. This is world war. So it's going to be caused by world war. It's going to be caused by a war. So if it's going to be caused by a war, it's not supernatural. It is weapons that men have devised against each other. Yehuda will be present at Jerusalem and will be fighting also. Yehuda is present at Jerusalem today. In the end, all the wealth of all the Gentiles round about will be gathered together. Round about. What does that mean? Let's have a look. The land of Israel. Let's get a map. Roundabout, huh? Circular motion, huh? All right. This is Israel. Do we agree? Jerusalem is right here. Now, roundabout, or you could say north, south, east, and west. So south, north, east, and west. That's your roundabout. So all the spoils the wealth of all the Gentiles round about shall be gathered together, gold, silver, apparel, and in great abundance. Now, you thought that this plague was going to be upon the invaders, right? As they were invading. This plague will be the plague of the horse. It includes land animals or jet planes, birds, or whatever, right? The mule, of the camel, of the donkey, and of all the beasts that shall be in these tents. Oh, the tents are the dwelling places of the Gentiles. Now, we see, and it shall come to pass, those who are left over of all the Gentiles, which came up against Jerusalem, shall go every year to worship the King, Jehovah of hosts. The crown prince is Yehoshua, who has the same name of his Abba Jehovah, except it means Jehovah is salvation. He has the same name, but that name states that Jehovah is salvation. And to keep the feast of booths, and it shall be of all the families of the earth at Jerusalem to worship the King, Jehovah of hosts. There will not be any rain. There will be a plague of rain. It will be forced to come in by a plague of rain. Plague of no rain. By the two witnesses. And the family of Egypt goes not up. Egypt will then receive the same blow from Jehovah that he smote the nations that came against Jerusalem. My people will say, yes, Jehovah could launch a fire in Egypt, but remember, it says right here on his own, supernaturally, but remember what it says right here. The stroke that he will smite all the people who have fought against Jerusalem. Their eyes shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their flesh shall consume away, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth, and in that day a great war. War. We just proved that it was war, shall be among them. They will lay hold everyone on the hand of his neighbor, and the hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. This is what's going to cause the event that leads up. This leads up to the event where nuclear weapons are being used. Now we go to the book of Revelation and bring more proof of that, about nuclear weapons. Revelation 9. And the sixth messenger sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before Jehovah, not God, saying to the sixth messenger which had the shofar, loosed the 4 messengers which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And as you all know by now, a great war has been taking place on the great river Euphrates for years. And finally, Jehovah says, turn these messengers loose. And the 4 messengers were loosed, which prepared for an hour, a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay 1/3 of men. And the number of the army of the horsemen, the cavalry, was to 10,000. 10,000. Now what is 10,000, 10,000? I don't really know. But it's not 200,000. It's not 200 million. He just says 2. That 100 doesn't belong there. See? 2 doesn't say 200, it says 2. 2, 10,000, 10,000. I heard the number of them, and I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them. Or, it doesn't say them that sat on them. It just says, I saw the horses in the vision, and that which was seated on them. Oh, these are not people. That which was seated on them had breastplates of fire. All right. Let's see. Yars ICBM. All right. Let's pull up the pictures. See if I can find one that best describes it. This one right here would probably best describe it. All right. I hope you can see it. See if we can get a bigger picture. Come on. Where is it? Wow. Okay. Maybe I'll use this. There we go. Finally got a decent picture. All right. So we're going to study this thing. And that which was sat on them, not them, but that which sat on them had breastplate of fire. What do you mean breastplate of fire? It's the color of fire. On the breastplate was the color of fire. And what colors of fire were there? I mean, you can have blue, that's the color of fire too, right? Don't we all agree to that? But no, see, Yohanan goes even further. He describes the actual colors of jacinth and brimstone. All right. Now what we're going to do is look up jacinth. All right. It says jacinth and brimstone. All right. Let's bring the images here. Now jacinth can be yellow, orange, and black. Orange and black, or it can be yellow and black. As you can clearly see here. So what are the colors of fire that was on this particular vehicle? Which had a breastplate of iron? Take a look at this color carefully, and we will look at this and we will see on its breastplate was the color of fire. Specifically, jacinth and brimstone. We know that brimstone is yellow. Therefore, it was not red or orange. What do these weapons have the capability of doing? Two things. Wiping all of humanity off the face of the earth. That's number one. Number two is causing the eyes to disappear out of their sockets while a man is standing on his feet. Let's continue. And the head of the horses were like the heads of lions. What is interesting about the head of a lion? Well, the head of a lion looks wide. All right, let's look at this again. Well, it's wide. Okay. It's wide. That's the back side. This is the front side. Now, let's continue. Reading. You'll find a lot of information here if you just pay attention. Okay, okay. The heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouth issued fire, smoke, and brimstone. Where is the mouth on this thing? I'll show you. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. All right, so as you can see, I wish this picture was brighter. There is a concave right here. And on each side is a place where a man can sit. And this thing sets down in a mouth, so to speak. Okay? In a mouth. So what does it say? It says, and out of the mouth issues fire, smoke, and brimstone. What's setting in the mouth? The missile. The missile. By these three were the third part of men killed, by the fire, and by the smoke, and by the brimstone. So what kind of smoke kills a third part of people? Has there been any kind of smoke recorded in history at all that mass destroys people? Nuclear smoke does. There is no other smoke that does. Which issued out of their mouth, for their power is in their mouth and in their tail. What do you mean? How is the power in their mouth and in their tail? Because, friends, this is the tail and this is the mouth. And when you raise it up, where is it? When you raise it up, let's see if we can find it. Well, sets down in the mouth, and this is it. But when you raise it up, I'll see if I can find when it's raised. It looks like that. All right. Now, let's continue. Now, I don't know if you've seen a rattlesnake raise its tail up when it's shaking its tail. That's the reason why he likens it to a serpent. For the power is in their mouth and in their tail, for their tails were like unto serpent's tail, and the serpents and those tails had heads. the tails had heads. How many warheads are in a Russian ICBM? Let's find out. Russia appears to have about 400 nuclear-armed intercontinental ballistic missiles, which the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists estimate can carry up to 1,185 warheads. So, in theory, if you take in other words, there's more than one warhead in each ICBM. In a large payload, it would allow for up to 10 heavy warheads or 15 lighter ones or up to 24 hypersonic glide vehicles, or a combination of warheads, a massive amount of countermeasures designed to defeat anti-missile system. It was announced by the Russian military as a part of the U.S. prompt global strike, as a response to U.S. prompt global strike. See? So, multiple heads in the tail. And the tail would be this. Multiple warheads inside that. Or maybe this is one of the multiple warheads inside of this. That's probably what it is. Okay? So we were given plenty of warning. We even know who is going to launch these missiles based upon the markings of the vehicles. Yes, pride does come before a fall. Proverbs 16 and verse 18, if you care to look. Everybody knows it. But pride makes the one who has this pride feel invincible. Well, we are all going to find out just how invincible a man is very shortly. I hope you're ready. Haven't I been warning the public long enough? And I want to add one more thing. Whenever somebody passes away in the United States and they leave an estate behind, the inheritance situation goes to probate court. All right? And so a probate court in most states gives creditors up to 6 months to make a claim, to file a claim. And all the court has to do is make an announcement in the local paper if somebody's deceased that they did have 6 months to make a claim, to file a claim. Just a local paper, that's it. If there was such a thing, as me being able to put it in a local paper, just locally. According to the world standards, according to the United States standards, that's enough. That is enough warning. That's not what I did. I put this information out there for the whole world to see. And I'm not an apostle. I'm not sent forth to do any of this. I felt it was an obligation because I was not going to be accused on Judgment Day to have learned these things and kept it to myself, or worse, buried it in the sand. No. I'm not going to be accused of that. Now, you see, what I did was, as I pointed out to you, how badly the King James Version has deceived the masses, the English masses, and those of you who don't speak English but speak other languages, you can, by listening to my video, if you do understand English, you can go look in your own national translations and realize that yours also has deceived the masses in your tongue. Now, what that does is that puts the onus upon you to find out what the truth is, and to speak the truth and to act accordingly. You see? So, there's no excuses. I don't care if you are in China, if you are in Russia. If you have access to the internet, you have access to this. Remember what I told you. Here in the United States, when somebody's deceased and they leave an inheritance, it goes to probate court. In probate court, typically 6 months is allowed for the creditors to file a claim. And the only thing that the court has to do is put out a statement in the local paper to let everybody know that so-and-so has died, and they have 6 months to make a claim. Just the local paper. That is according to U.S. law. So, folks, this warning is a whole lot better. This has been put on the two largest, I know one of them is the largest for sure, social media outfits in the world, YouTube, and also on BitChute. And BitChute goes around the world. And YouTube will censor, but BitChute does not. I don't know what else to tell you, folks. I don't know what else to do. I've warned you more than enough. It's been more than enough. According to American standards, it's more than enough. So, yeah. And why do I wear this? Let me tell you, let me explain to you why I wear this while I'm doing my YouTube channel. Because you Christians, you forced the Jews to wear this and rags. for centuries, for millennia. As third-class citizens, in the name of Jesus, you did it. Very soon, you Gentiles, you Christians, are going to be wearing rags or even less. And you're going to be wearing a mark. That mark that you use on your forehead, that mark is going to get you the full wrath from on high. That cross on your forehead that you do on Ash Wednesday. And that cross on your right hand that you Coptic Orthodox Christians is also going to get you the full wrath of Jehovah for what you did to the Jews.